It is our fervent belief that any meaningful constitutional reform process should not be devoid of national consensus. We therefore are of the considered view that any rushed, piecemeal amendment shall not deliver the durable, credible, and relevant supreme law that Zambians have craved for decades.
Welcome to Zambia Today Television, where stories unfold. Bringing you the latest in politics and governance. Today, we focus on the heated debate surrounding President Hakainde Hichilema's proposal to amend the Zambian constitution, a move that has sparked widespread backlash from various stakeholders.
I take it that as a nation, we agree that we will amend the constitution before the 2026 elections so we can deliver more opportunities for women and the society as a whole. Thank you very much. I really
During his address at the International Women's Day celebrations in Kasama, President Hichilema hinted at the need for constitutional amendments, stating that his administration seeks to align the supreme law with its governance and policy objectives. However, his remarks have ignited a firestorm of opposition, with civil society organizations, opposition parties, members of parliament, and ordinary citizens rejecting the proposal.
Inclusiveness, citizen participation, accountability, and the separation of powers between the three arms of government, that is to say the judiciary, legislature, and executive, it is our fervent belief that any meaningful constitutional reform process should not be devoid of national consensus. We therefore are of the considered view that any rushed, piecemeal amendment shall not deliver the durable, credible, and relevant supreme law that Zambians have craved for decades. I think earlier on, Comrade Morris did mention that this process has been with us for decades. We draw the attention of the nation to the process undertaken during the Constitution of Zambia, Amendment Bill number 10 of 2019, which was popularly known as Bill 10, and warn against taking constitutional reform that are not demand-driven, and this is to say citizens-driven. We remain gravely concerned that the proposed amendment process will not be centered on the will of the people of Zambia, and such will undermine a democratic process for delivering a national constitution.
The opposition is not holding back. Many leaders argue that this is a calculated move to manipulate the legal framework for political gain. Some have even called for mass mobilization to resist any constitutional changes.
I would like to say that for the first time in the history of this country, the UPND government wants to amend the constitution without a roadmap. They have not told anyone what the roadmap is in respect of how they intend to amend the constitution. Now, this means that nobody knows about the budgetary allocation to this process. Nobody knows anything about this process, which means that there is literally no transparency.
From the onset, I want to say that as PF members under the Alliance, we will not support the proposed constitution amendments. The position has been made very clear that even if there may be good intentions around constitution amendments, that cannot be done now. That cannot be done now. And the reasons are simple. Popular participation is very key in constitution amendments. The process of constitution amendments started around 2022. We've been talking to our friends in the EPND. You may be interested to know that the process almost started at Parliament. We, the PF Anatonsa Alliance, rejected and resisted it. We advised Parliament that we could not be the ones to initiate constitution amendments. What they called low-hanging fruits, we advised them there's nothing like low-hanging fruits when it comes to constitution amendments. We advised them that, firstly, the constitutional amendment process needed to be designed. The roadmap to constitutional amendment is part of the design.
Because from the very inception, this planned amendment to the Republican Constitution is shrouded in dishonesty. It is shrouded in lies. It is shrouded in manipulation. And so we as Tonse Alliance, given that the entire planned amendment of the Constitution is shrouded in dishonesty, it is shrouded in deception, it is shrouded in lies, we do not need to wait and see the actual draft. We do not need to wait and see the actual text of the planned amendment to the Constitution. We don't need to wait for that. We know that the entire process, that the entire planned activity of amending the Republican Constitution is for the benefit of one person only, and not the majority of the Zambian people, and not the youth, which the president claimed, and not the women, which the president claimed. It will benefit to amend the Constitution. It is very clear, based on the lies, based on the deception, and based on the dishonesty from the Republican president, both in Kasama as well as in Mongu yesterday, that this entire planned amendment to the Constitution is something that is not for the benefit of the Zambian people. And so for us as Tonse Alliance, that is the reason why we have decided to undertake the peaceful countrywide protests, which are scheduled for Wednesday this coming week, which is the 19th of March 2025. If this process, I want to emphasize this point, if the process of the planned amendment to the Constitution was premised on truth, if it was premised on honesty, if it was premised on genuineness, if it was premised on good faith, we as Tonse Alliance would not have found reason to protest against it.
Many believe that constitutional amendments should be driven by national consensus, not unilateral decisions from the ruling party.
Intentions to amend the Zambian constitution in relation to the reasons that is been given to the public, because the reasons are we need women and youth to be represented in key sectors. But if you read Article 259.1, this one above here, if you read Article 259.1, is that in fact this article mandates that the appointing authorities, him being an appointing authority, he ought to ensure 50% of each gender is represented in public office appointments, and that there is equitable representation of youths and persons living with disability. So the whole essence as to why we have this article within the Constitution is so that we, the youths, women, and people living with disabilities can be properly represented in key government sectors. Despite this constitutional mandate, which is Article 259.1, the practical implementation has been lacking. This is why in 2020, we had non-governmental organization that filed a petition with the Constitution Court challenging the government's failure to implement existing constitutional provision. This provision has already been existing, but the government has been failing to implement this. Further, in 2021, August, just after the president was elected, in fact, a consortium of civil society organizations called on the newly elected president, him by then being elected, to ensure equitable representation of women, youths, and people living with disabilities under his cabinet appointments. Did we see that happening? No, it never did, because the president does not have the appetite of including women, youths, and people living with disabilities in his cabinet. We've not been able to see this. So the excuse that the president has, such as this video.
About what? About the Constitution. What is wrong with the Constitutional Amendment to bring more women and youth in Parliament? So you'll be demonstrating against your own interests.
So the excuse that the president has to talk about women and youths under youth program, it is because he's just trying to use you, the youths. He's trying to use you women to talk about this, when in fact his agenda is different from having youths and women being represented. Because Article 259.1 of the Zambian Constitution makes it very clear. In summary, the Zambian Constitution does provide provision for the inclusion of youths women, and people living with disabilities. But there is no appetite for the president, the current head of state today, to implement.
What happens next? Will President Hichilema push forward despite growing resistance, or will he reconsider? With tensions rising, all eyes are on the government's next move. Stay tuned to Zambia Today Television, where stories unfold. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates on this developing story.
I've done that, but this entire process, when you look at the timing, it is being brought at the last hour before election time. Why did they bring this at the very last minute before next year's elections? So you can see there are a lot of variables that President Hakainde Hichilema has brought on this proposed amendment to the Constitution